Hello and welcome back to the Veg Garden. In today's video I'll be talking to you about how you can increase your soil's fertility without the need of buying in composts or other fertility or amendments. So there are various different amendments I'll be talking to you today about. These will include liquid and solid amendments, mineral and biological. There's a whole plethora of different types out there, but these are the few that I have tried and tested this year and I have found really good. And these are all done that I've done for pretty much for free, without the need of buying in any specialised equipment or anything fancy. And I've had reasonably good success with them, and I will show you the results of these success stories as well as just telling you how to do them. So the first garden amendment I'll be talking to you about is homemade compost. Now, as you can see, this is a very friable compost, and it's got a whole host of different organisms in it. As you can see, there's a bit of mycorrhizal fungi in there, different like networks of stuff, colonies of bacteria. I'll bring this in a bit closer. Where are we? There. As you can see, it's really open and light and smells really earthy. It's a really nice compost. So this is made with all the waste from the house. So as you can see, there's a bit of that's a banana skin actually. As you can see, it just tears easily. There's some prunings from the hedge. These haven't fully decomposed, some bits, but as you can see, other bits have fully decomposed. But the main bulk of it actually is the bedding from the horse and the manure from the horse, and also the goats, and that is building up a good stockpile ready for the winter months of mulching, and it is good stuff. I've used mulched one bed with it already, and the plants are growing really well in it. One thing I will note though is you can see that if I don't turn it, and this is the bit I found at the bottom, this is a bit of horse manure that hasn't broken down, and it's wet and it smells really putrid. So that's what happens when you don't aerate a compost pile. So what I've learned from this is that I'll need some woodier material towards the bottom of the pile that will increase the airflow, either that or getting some pipes or mesh into the bottom to increase the airflow and to get a nicer compost, because some of this stuff up the far end, up the top here, is just teeming with life and full of different things. So here there's a bit of fungi growing, and there's even a mushroom growing on the top of it. Loads of them the other day, just growing over the top of this. And it's full of life, and there's quite a few worms in here now. Can't find any now. Is there one? Yeah. And there's loads of worms in here as well. There's one. Yeah. Sure I saw one. Anyway, so it's full of life. But that is the only thing I will suggest, is getting something to get the air in the bottom, because that's the only downside I've had with this pile, is that it hasn't fully decomposed in the bottom, but we'll get there. Still learning. So another amendment I've been using quite frequently this year has been JLF, with the damn liquid fertilizer. Now, as you can see, it makes quite a murky water, which is high in nutrients and bacteria. So I've got dock here and peas here, so both of which will be quite high in nitrogen, which will help any leafy greens and young plants develop large leaves. But the dock will also be quite high in calcium, which will help the blossom end rot, and other sort of trace elements. It's not just those two, but as you can see as well, all this white sort of film on the top, it's really thick. You know, you can grab it and you can rip it and stuff. That is just bacteria, solid bacteria pretty much, different colonies, and that's from the soil that I've put in there, all the compost, well decomposed compost. and a bit of soil mixed. And the aims of that is to increase a bit of the biological life within the amendment. And then, like any liquid amendment, I just add it into water and water it onto the leaves, and you can use it as a root drench, and that should increase your yields, your nutrient density, and the soil health. So another amendment I've been using in the garden this year has been this really good worm bin. So you can get, let's see, oh yeah, we've got some. You can get some quite nice worm juice off it, which you can use in the same way as the JLF. You can also get the worm castings, which you can use as a compost. If you mix it with sand, or even like I've mixed it with soil just to make it less claggy, because it's really like, it's quite like clay in a way. So if you mix it with just soil, sieved soil, you can make a really good potting mix with it. Gets your plants off to an amazing start. And if we have a look inside, we can see that there's loads of worms in here. It's full of worms, as you can see. They're all scavenging around, loving life. So I'll just bury them back. So we just feed them any food that's going off, or any plants that are looking a bit over. So as you can see in there, there was some red veined sorrel, and I've just chopped that up into a bucket and tipped it on. And so you get the liquid and the worm castings. Anyway, so they're fine. Mum's literally like 2 meters behind them. So the worm castings I've used to take a lot of herb cuttings, and the herb cuttings have just exploded in growth. And I've had some really nice kale growing with just by sprinkling a bit of it around the base of the kale at planting time, just scattering it out. I put a handful next to each one, just around the plant, and they've just exploded. The last 3 weeks they've tripled in size nearly. They're doubling every week, you know, exponentially growing. And the worm juice, I put the worm juice down to my good beetroot yields I've been having this year, because this stuff just comes out quite readily actually. As long as you put a lot of wet materials in there, you can have worm juice all day long. And all you have to do, if you're not going to use it that day, you just recycle it through the bin, and that'll collect even more nutrients on its way back through. So as you can see, I'm in the tunnel and with the tomatoes, and as you can see, there's a load of plant material on the path. So this is one of my composting paths. I've got 2 more outside, and this has all come from side shooting the tomatoes and taking the lower leaves off. So the reason we do that is to increase airflow. As you can see, it's quite light under here, but also to prevent disease and allow the irrigation to spray the water to the front tomatoes instead of hitting the leaves on the back and stopping. It also helps the fruit ripen. But these paths are essential for increasing soil organic matter for these beds for next year, but also, as they're breaking down this year, these tomatoes are going to be drawing nutrients out of them. So if I just scrape down a bit, you can see that we're back to the last path that I had, and all I've done here is added the chippings horse bed, chipped horse bed, whatever you want to call it, and there's a bit of horse manure in it. But if we scrape down even more, you can see that it's genuinely like compost. You wouldn't even differentiate between like a bought-in compost and what's essentially just broken down wood chips. So what I'm doing is making a compost path right next to the beds in which the materials come from, so all that material can go back Another plant thing that I've been adding here, which is quite funny actually, is the marigolds. Now they've gone so tall, they're about 2.5 foot tall, so what's that, like 75 centimeters, that I've had to cut them out at the tops to let them like bush out lower down, because I bought African marigolds and I think they're really tall, unlike these, what I grew last year were French marigolds. So I don't think I'll be buying them again in a hurry, or if I do, I'll be trying to grow the smaller, keep them small, because as you can see, this is just one plant. But all I do then is I just put it on the floor, rip it up a bit, and then as you walk over that, you're squishing all the fibres, and eventually it'll turn to compost. So in this bed here, I've actually utilised chop and drop. So it may look like compost, but if we have a closer look, you'll actually see that it's chips. But these aren't just any chips, these are actually broad bean chips. So these were broad beans. And as you can see, there's a few, one there, there's one there, and there's one there, of the broad beans that are growing back. And then if you look there, there's like a stump. If I hold the borage down, there's a bit of a stump here with the old borage, broad beans, and there's a pod there. But what I've done is I've run all this through the chipper, and it's chipped it up into a nice chips that's going to break down quite fast, and it's just full of life already. There's all this like mycelium running through it and fungal colonies, and as you can see, the plants that are growing in it are just amazingly healthy already, and they've only been in a week. So that's another way of utilising your own what you've got to hand instead of buying in compost. So the final method of increasing soil fertility and soil organic matter in the garden is in containers. Now, as you can see, I've got a really healthy broccoli plant here. Well, I'm not sure. It's some brassica anyway. I've got them all mixed up and the birds pulled the labels out, so I think it's a broccoli, I'm not sure. So I've got some quite nice soil in the top here, and mix of soil compost. As you can see, there's a bit of homemade stuff from the high amount of branches. But I've also added a lot of worm castings to it, and that's how these have become quite healthy and green. You can see the leaves are shining. But the genius behind the double stack is that underneath, if I lift this to one side, you can see that under here I could put materials to compost. So I put a bit of grass here, as you can see, and it's starting to break down. But over a few months, that'll just turn to compost. Then when this Calabrese plant finishes, broccoli plant, whatever you want to call it, when this finishes, I can put all the material from this plant on top of the soil surface here, and bring this bucket on top of this one and grow in this one, because this one has had a bit of a break to break down all that material. It's being protected from erosion by this bucket, so it's just given time to rest and compost. And then now this bucket's all fertile, I can swap them over and grow in this bucket, and this bucket can have a rest and put all the nutrients back into it. As a little side bonus as well, sometimes you get slugs in here. This one seems to be pretty slug free. Sometimes you get slugs coming and living under here, so you can pick them out then at this swap over time, and you're reducing the slug numbers, but it also gives the worms a chance to come to the surface and decompose some of the materials on the surface. So you're actually boosting your soil ecology massively, because you're increasing the worm count, so you're increasing the earthworm castings, which are quite high in bacteria. So, you know, you're increasing that, which is then going to increase your yields and fertility of the soil and the health of your plants, and then inevitably the health of you. So any little bits that you get, you can just chuck them down there. So let's see, I've got some grass here. I'll take some of this mint from next door. That won't get any light. There's some weeds here. You know, say now I got over here, I got a kale leaf. It's got a bit of caterpillar damage. I can stick that under there, and I can just bung that back on top, and it'll just do its thing. And when that broccoli plant finishes, I can just swap them over and start again. Thanks very much for watching my video. I hope to again see you next time. Videos are a bit sporadic at the moment because I'm trying to actually redesign the whole garden to be a bit more self-sufficient and self-replicating and self-catering, so it can sort of fertilize itself and keep itself a bit more, so I can take a step back. So as you can see, I've got all these crops that I haven't had to give anything to all season. I've just sprayed them with bit of worm casting juice. That's all these lot have had, and they've had a bit of the pea JLF as well in their water, and they're growing quite well considering they've only gone in like 2 months ago. I've had loads of courgettes off the courgette in the back, and I've had a few tomatoes off this plant already. There's even cucumber vines coming through here, and as you can see, there's a Cape gooseberry behind me, or physalis. There's some oca here, amaranth just poking his head around the corner, and there's some corn just off camera there, and they're all grown in, you know, just standard homemade compost. There's nothing special about it. It's quite dry because I'm trying to make a capillary block so that we don't lose so much to evaporation. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Hopefully there'll be another video next week, if not week after. I'm hoping to come do a bit more now that everything's finished. And before I leave you, I will assure you those goats are fine. I can see them. They just can't see their mother, who's just in the bottom field, and they haven't worked out to go down there, so I will take them down there now once I finish filming. They're just over there, and their mother's just down there, but they still can't see her. So might have to take them to Specsavers and have their eyes tested. See you in the next one.